She walked into the ring with nothing but worn sneakers and a dream her family had built from struggle. Around her, the cameras flashed. Not to celebrate her, but to mock her. To them, she didn't belong. She was just another poor black girl, stepping into a world reserved for privilege and power. But what no one knew was that this fight wasn't just about boxing. It was about dignity, survival, and the price of underestimating someone who's already fought 1,000 invisible battles. Because when humiliation meets hunger, who really stands a chance? Kiana Lewis was only 19, but her eyes carried the weight of someone who'd fought for everything she had. Born in the back streets of Kingston, Jamaica, she grew up dodging more struggles than punches, power outages, empty dinner tables, and the sound of her mother praying they'd make rent another month. When she finally earned a sports scholarship to New York, it felt like the world was opening its doors. But she soon realized some doors weren't meant to welcome her in. The Manhattan Elite Boxing Club wasn't just a gym, it was a statement. Glass walls, imported equipment, trophies lined up like soldiers, and a membership price that could feed a family for a year. Kiana stepped in that day clutching an old gym bag, unaware that every pair of eyes had already decided who she was. To them, she didn't look like an athlete. She looked like a mistake. Her skin, her accent, her secondhand clothes, they spoke louder than her determination ever could. Still, she bowed her head, filled out the forms, and whispered a silent promise. This time, she wouldn't let the world push her out. But fate had other plans, because standing in the center of the ring was the one woman everyone admired and feared, Valerie Stone, a two-time world champion with fists of steel and a heart carved from pride. And when Valerie's eyes met Kiana's, a cruel smirk spread across her face, the kind that said, "You don't belong here." That was the moment the air shifted. Kiana had no idea that what was supposed to be a routine training session would become a public spectacle, one that would test not just her skill but her worth. Because in that gym, the real fight was never about boxing. It was about belonging. The first few rounds were supposed to be light sparring, just practice. That's what the trainer said. But from the moment Kiana stepped into the ring, it didn't feel like training. It felt like a trial. The crowd of elite members gathered closer, whispering and chuckling as Valerie wrapped her gloves. Cameras came out not to record skill but spectacle. Kiana tried to focus. She stretched, adjusted her gloves, whispered to herself the words her mother used to say, "Fight clean. Fight proud." But the smirk on Valerie's face said everything. This wasn't going to be clean. The bell rang. Valerie came at her fast, jabbing hard, not testing, taunting. Every punch landed like it carried a message: you don't belong here. The audience laughed when Kiana stumbled, gasped when she tried to defend, and groaned when Valerie feigned pity after every blow. The humiliation wasn't just physical, it was staged. But Kiana didn't quit. She stood her ground, blood pooling in her mouth, eyes locked forward. Every second she refused to fall only made Valerie angrier, and that's when the whispers turned louder. "She's slow. She's weak. She's just lucky to be here." Kiana heard every word. Each one cut deeper than a punch. She could feel the weight of centuries pressing on her. Expectations, stereotypes, silence. All she wanted was a fair fight. Instead, she became entertainment. The third round began. Valerie didn't wait for the bell's echo to fade. She charged in, hitting harder, faster, cross-hook, uppercut, forcing Kiana to the ropes. The referee looked away. He wasn't going to stop it. This wasn't about fairness. This was about proving a point and then the unthinkable. Valerie landed a brutal punch to Kiana's ribs, sending her crashing to the mat. The crowd erupted, not in concern but amusement. Phones came out. Someone shouted, "Guess the charity work's over." Kiana gasped for air, her vision spinning, the taste of iron thick on her tongue. For a moment she thought of staying down. It would be easier. No more humiliation. No more eyes waiting for her to fail. But somewhere inside her, something shifted. She thought of her mother, her younger sister back home watching the live stream, the little girl who said, "One day I'll be like you." No, she couldn't stay down. Slowly, painfully, she rose. The laughter turned to murmurs. Valerie's confident grin faltered for the first time. The bell rang again. Round 4. Kiana steadied her stance. This time her punches were cleaner, faster. She moved with purpose. Valerie swung wild, missing, irritated. The audience leaned in. The trainer's eyes widened. Something had changed. The energy, the control, the story. Kiana wasn't the victim anymore. She was the challenger, but Valerie wasn't done. Humiliation wasn't enough. She wanted domination. She charged again, reckless with pride. Kiana ducked, countered, and landed a sharp right hook that snapped Valerie's head back. The sound echoed through the gym. Gasps replaced laughter. For the first time, Kiana saw fear, not in herself, but in the one who mocked her. The champion staggered, eyes wide with disbelief. The cameras that once filmed a joke were now capturing something different. A reckoning. And just before the next bell, as Valerie backed away, clutching her jaw, Kiana whispered to herself, not for the crowd, not for the cameras, but for every moment she'd been told she didn't belong. Now you'll remember my name. By round 6, the air inside the gym felt heavier, tense, electric, divided. Half the crowd wanted a show. The other half started to wonder if they were watching cruelty disguised as competition. Kiana's body ached with every movement. Her ribs burned, her vision blurred, her gloves hung heavy. Across from her, Valerie still looked flawless. Barely a bruise, but her pride was bleeding. She couldn't stand that the poor girl was still standing. Then came the moment that silenced everything. Valerie raised her glove and mid-swing landed a brutal blow after the bell. A cheap shot, the kind meant to break not just bones but spirit. Kiana collapsed. The crowd gasped. Even the trainer flinched. Cameras zoomed in as Valerie smirked and raised her arms like a victor. The referee hesitated, unsure whether to call it. It wasn't just a foul, it was a message. Know your place. But as Kiana lay there, the sound of her heartbeat drowned out everything, the cheers, the whispers, even the pain. In that spinning silence, flashes of her life played like frames of a film, her mother's hands braiding her hair, the first time she laced up her gloves, the nights she trained under flickering streetlights because the gym was closed to people like her, and then, something inside her refused to die. She pushed herself up, trembling, defying every expectation. Gasps rippled through the room. Valerie froze. The referee tried to stop it, but Kiana shook her head. She wasn't done. Not like this. The bell rang again, final round. Valerie lunged, furious, swinging wild with rage. But Kiana was calm now. Every dodge, every counter came from instinct, purpose, and pain turned into power. Then it happened. One clean uppercut. Sharp, fast, final. Valerie's body hit the canvas with a thud that echoed louder than all the laughter before. Silence. Then shock. Then something no one expected. Applause. Kiana stood there, chest heaving, tears mixing with sweat. She didn't gloat. She didn't smile. She just looked down at the woman who tried to humiliate her and whispered to herself, "This isn't revenge. This is respect." The crowd that once mocked her now stood in stunned silence. The woman they had come to laugh at was the one still standing, bruised, trembling, but unbroken. Cameras that once captured her humiliation were now documenting something far greater. The moment a young black woman refused to be defined by anyone else's limits. Valerie never met Kiana's eyes again. The so-called champion left the ring before the referee could even raise a hand. Pride can't survive where respect is earned. But Kiana didn't celebrate. She didn't need to. Because what she'd won wasn't a match, it was her voice back. That video of the fight spread faster than any highlight reel. Millions watched it. Not for the punches, but for the message behind them. Some saw courage. Others saw discomfort. But everyone saw truth. And for Kiana, that truth became her strength. Sponsors who once ignored her came calling. Journalists asked for interviews, but when she finally spoke, her words weren't about boxing, they were about belonging. She said, "The real fight isn't in the ring. It's in every room where someone like me has to prove they deserve to stand there." Her story became more than a viral moment. It became a mirror, a reminder that talent doesn't have a color, and that pride built on prejudice always falls hardest. But maybe the most powerful part wasn't her victory. It was what came after. She began mentoring other young girls who had been told they weren't good enough. She told them to keep fighting, not for approval, but for self-worth. Because every time someone like Kiana stands back up, the world has to look a little closer at the truth it tries to ignore. And maybe that's what real strength looks like. Fighting a battle you shouldn't have to fight, and winning it anyway. So the next time the world underestimates someone because of their skin, their voice, or where they come from, maybe we should ask ourselves, how many more Kiana will it take before we stop turning pain into proof?